Good morning. So, our topic for today is all about the categories and classification of arts. And for the objectives, first is understanding to recognize the importance and purpose of different art forms, specifically conceptual art, digital art, fashion design, applied art, and pottery. Next is analyzing is to explore how art influences culture, society, and personal expression. Values is to appreciate creativity, craftsmanship, and innovation in art. Lastly is the attitude to develop a respectful and open-minded approach to artistic expression.
Okay, good morning, everyone. So, for the words of wisdom for today, challenges are not roadblocks but stepping stones to growth. So, no matter how hard life gets, keep moving forward with courage and faith. And every struggle you overcome makes you stronger, wiser, and closer to success. So, this means that hard times are not meant to stop you, but to help you grow. So when you face problems with courage and trust, you become stronger and wiser, and instead of fearing hardships, embrace them as opportunities to improve and move forward. So that's all for the words of wisdom.
And now, before we proceed to our proper discussion, let us have first our motivational activity. So, the discussants had prepared a crossword instructional materials and will call students to complete the task. So, a student will choose their word give in a roll paper provided by the discussant. So, a student will read the word written on a roll paper and then find and cross out that word in an instructional material. If he or she failed to complete a task, the discussant, will will call another student to complete the task.
Good morning. My topic delves into the world of conceptual art. Conceptual art, also known as conceptualism, emerged as significant art movement in the 1960s and 1970s. It arose as a reaction against the increasing commercialization of the art world and the emphasis on traditional aesthetic values. Artists began to prioritize the idea or concept behind the artwork over its physical manifestation. This shift meant that the process of conceiving and realizing the idea became the primary focus rather than the creation of a visually appealing or technically proficient object. While precursors can be found in the earlier movements like Dadaism, particularly Marcel Duchamp ready-mades. The 1960s saw the formal establishment of conceptual art as a distinct movement with key figures like Saul Louet, Joseph Kouzut, and the Art and Language Group articulating its principles. Several types of conceptual art emerge. First is the instruction-based art. So the artist provides instruction for creating the artwork, which can then be executed by anyone. This emphasizes the idea's primacy over the artist's hand. Where the artist gives instruction for creating the artwork, emphasizing the idea over the artist's hand. So, for example, silhouettes wall drawings are made by following the artist's instruction, not by the artist's hand. Second is the language-based art. The artwork consists primarily of text exploring the relationship between the language, meaning, and art. So the artwork uses the text to explore concepts and relationship between language and meaning. So example is the Lawrence Weiner's statements are artworks that consist solely of text, challenging traditional art forms. Third is performance art. So the artwork is a performance or event prioritizing the act of creation and its impact on audience. So the artwork is a live event emphasizing the act of creation and its impact on the audience. So example, Marina's Abramovic, so the artist is present, involve her sitting silently for hours, allowing the audience to engage with her presence. Lastly is the installation art. So the artwork transforms a space using the environment to convey the concept. This often involves site specificity, where the artwork is inextricably linked to its location. The artwork transforms a space, often site-specific, using the environment to convey the concept. For example, the Robert Smithson Spiral Jetty is a large spiral made of earth and rocks in the Great Salt Lake, its meaning tied to the landscape and the lake's changing water levels. Conceptual art's importance lies in its challenge to traditional notions of art. It questioned the rule of the artist, the nature of artistic creation, and the very definition of art itself. It opened up the possibilities for artistic expression beyond the limitation of traditional media and techniques. The movements and influence can be seen in contemporary art practices, including installation art, performance art, and various forms of media art. It continues to inspire artists to explore new ways of thinking about art and its relationship to the world. These are the examples of conceptual artworks. Marcel Duchamp is considered a precursor, with his 1917 piece Fountain being cited as the first conceptual artwork. So, a ready-made urinal presented as art, challenging the definition of art and the rule of the artist. Second is the Joseph Kosuth's 1 and 3 chairs in 1965. So this work presents a chair, a photograph of a chair, and a dictionary definition of chair, exploring the relationship between object, representation, and concept. Third is the Solowitz wall drawings. So, instructions for creating geometric wall drawings, emphasizing the concept over the execution. Fourth is Richard Serra's Tilted Arc in 1981. So, a large-scale steel sculpture that transformed the urban space, provoking debate about public art and its relationship to its environment.
And now, let's proceed to the digital art. So, what is digital art? So, from the word itself, digital art, it is defined as any creative practice that uses digital technology as an essential part of the artistic process. It is ever evolving and radical in the way it is produced, distributed, and viewed. So, as of today, we are living where technology existed. So, of course, um, there will be an integration of technology in our daily lives, so as well as in art. So, in art, it is evolving from traditional to digital. Now, let's discuss the history of the digital art. So, although the first digital art experiences date back in 1980s, so its roots can be traced back to the 1960s with artists such as Freder Ney, the group It, which is experiments in art and technology, and Alan Caparel exploring the relationship of man and machine in the artistic realm. So, especially the latter, yes, envisioning a world of unbounded communication and interconnectedness. So, similarly, in the 1970s, pioneering video artist Nam June Paik, I don't know how to read his name, envisioned a future of electronic superhighway. So, he claimed that it is a boundary-less communication and coined expression, which is the electronic superhighway. So it was in the early 1980s. However, that an artist, Harold Cohen, with a group of engineers invented a paint program named Aaron. So it is a robotic machine designed to make large drawings on a sheet of paper placed on the floor. Initially, the machine was creating abstract drawings, then those turned more representational over time, and the machine was able to imitate shapes from nature. So in the 90s, Aaron also started to implement color to the drawings. Even though Cohen was always very careful not to claim Aaron's creativity but rather his own, considering the machine just as a tool for his own expression. So Cohen just used the the invented machine to express himself, to express um, his perception, or as what I've said, to express himself through that art using that machine. So his program is now considered as a harbinger of what we know today as artificial intelligence. So, of course, we are living in, in a world or in a generation where technology existed. So, in the 1990s, with the introduction of the personal computer, the improvements in the digital technology, and the emergence of the internet, not only did this development provide artists with further creative freedom, but also offered new ways to experience art with a growing interest in the interactive nature of their creative output. So, because of the technology, there are changes, evolvement of art. So, from traditional to digital. So, in that matter, um, the artist will be able to express more of themselves, ourselves rather. So here are the types of the digital art. First, we have the animations. So one of the first digital animations was Edmund Catmull and Fred Kurt's 1972 short film, A Computer Generated Hand. So the two computer science students modeled a hand using polygons and inputted the data into a computer, making the titular virtual hand move, contract, and rotate on a computer screen. So Catmull would go on to co-found animation Studio Pixel, which is a popular animation which has led the way in digital animated film since the late 1980s. So here are the types of animation. First, we have the 3D animation, which brings digital objects to life, creating the illusion that they are moving in a three-dimensional perspective. So despite being displayed on a 2D screen, these animations mimic the principles of 3D dimensions in the real world. So these types of animations are now widely used for all scenarios, be it in movies or advertisements. So I know we are very familiar with this. Second is the 2D animation or the two-dimensional animation. So it involves creating movements using static images in two dimensions. So the images are moving rapidly in a sequence, creating an illusion of movement, like a film. Also, it is widely used in movies, advertisements, promotions, and more. Third is a whiteboard animation. So it is an animation type where an artist draw a scene on a whiteboard and records it as an illustrative story. So it is a unique video animation technique that takes the audience into an immersive experience as each frame is constructed in front of the user. In addition, these kinds of animations usually have a narration accompanied while the story told is being drawn. It is widely used in explainer videos as this technique helps demonstrate ideas in an easy and effective manner. Fourth is the typography animation or the kinetic typography. So it is a type of animation involving moving text with effects like expanding, shrinking, or anything else that suits the scene. So this kind of animation is often used in movies and other videos as title screens, intro segments, credit segments, etc. So this animation, um, we can see them in a film, baron, or in movies. Next, we have fifth, the claymation, which is from the word itself, clay animation, is a type of stop motion animation that involves creating a scene in clay. So right from the characters to the scene, everything is made in clay. So this type of animation is widely used in classic children's movies as they are appealing and unique. So while one of the popular examples is Chicken Run. So I know we don't see this kind of movies in these days. Next, we have the sixth, which is the stop motion animation. So it is a technique where the objects used in the scene are physically moved in every frame and photographed. So these individual photographs are used and edited and created into a sequence to create an illusion of movement. So this is usually used in cartoons, short films, commercials, and other creative mediums. And now let's proceed to the seventh type of animation. So it is called the traditional style animation. So it is one of the oldest and most traditional forms of animation that involves hand drawing every scene on clear celluloid sheets. So we are very familiar to this animation since um, I know we experienced basta. So the sheets with a painted background are placed one on top of the other. As you might have guessed, the cell refers to the celluloid sheets on which the drawing is done. So this type of animation was widely used by artists in Walt Disney Studios. So the eighth is the rotoscope animation. So it is a type of animation that involves tracing live action videos and drawing over them to make the animation look realistic. So it was usually done by projecting the live action images on a glass panel, then tracing and customizing the subject according to the scene. So the major use case of rotoscope animation is in live action films where the matte or an outline of a character from the film can be extracted from a scene and put to use for another scene with a different background. Ninth is the flipbook animation. So it is one of the earliest forms of animation that involves in a small small book with drawings on its pages. So the pages represents the frames of the video. So when the pages are flipped rapidly, the series of pictures animate and convey the story. So this the flipbook animations are usually used in offline media such as magazines, children's stories and books. The last one, the puppetry animation. So as the name suggests, it uses puppets as the video primary subjects instead of any other objects. So it is one of the old and traditional forms of entertainment commonly used in children's cartoons and films. So another type of digital art is the pixel art. So it is created on software using minute image components known as pixels, which is kanang muraga square. So it is often associated with 8-bit and 16-bit games consoles. So for some, these represent a golden era in gaming history when developers created simple but memorable characters from Pac-Man to the original Mario. So today, you can find incredible examples of pixel art on platforms like Behance and other social media platforms. So kaning pixel art is kaning usually ginanato siya makita sa games like ang Pac-Man, like or siya Gasper Square, right? So example ana kay as what I've shown in the screen, ay kana si SpongeBob og si Pikachu. So another type of digital art is the concept art. So it is a way of bringing a story to life visually. So it creates the visual elements of story, including characters, costumes, scenes, locations, and sets, all fall under the umbrella of concept art. So this type of visualization helps add depth to characters and plots. For example, The Beauty and the Beast. So these are other examples I've shown on the screen, which is example of the concept art. So it is bringing story to life visually. So next is the algorithmic art. So it is the third type of digital art. So it refers to the process of creating artwork that is entirely computer generated or algorithmically determined. So this algorithmic art is usually generated by the computer. So the artist programs a set of rules for that computer to follow, leading to the creation of a piece of artwork. So during art, artists will use computers to generate images, and then it will result in an unimaginable new ideas, but does require the artist to relinquish some element of control over the final result. So after nila mag-generate og image, or I mean art through the computer, is ila pa nang i-enhance or napas sila yung mga tanaw ni elements if ever na ay kanang kulang pa sa ilahang ideas nga gihatag sa computer. So these are the examples as you can see in the screen. So next type is the photography. So digital cameras and post-production software make it easier than ever to enhance, manipulate, and generally get creative with your photos. So through photography, so of course we use digital cameras to capture things that we perceive to be beautiful or aesthetic. Yeah. So the first digital photo was created in 1957, a tiny 5 centimeter times 5 centimeter image of the photographer's son. Since then, programs like Photoshop have taken photography into infinite levels of creativity, from surrealist images to glitch effects and everything in between. So the photography is already discussed with the previous groups. So I know we all know what photography is. Here are the examples. Is the video. So in the 1990s, advances in digital editing and computer software meant 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 videographers could download videos onto computers. So this allowed huge freedom to create effects, collages, and edits unthinkable in the analog era. So fast forward a few decades, and you'll find video artists turned film directors like Steve McQueen bringing their techniques to mainstream audiences, while CGI artists such as Ed Atkins render extraordinary avatars for cutting-edge exhibitions. So video, kanang of course, kanang makita gid nato na in our everyday life, di ba? Na kanang daghan na kayo og kanang changes or daghan na kay elements nga gi-add sa video. So these are the examples, like makita ginato siya sa like kanang sa billboard, digital art versus traditional art. So the digital art, so viewers can access art wherever they are without needing to visit galleries in person to see original pieces. So of course, as we are now living where technology existed, so like our cell phone, pwede na ta makakita dito og mga art kung unsa man ganito ang ganahan, like for example, search sa tao kanang art gusto na to, so we can easily access um, arts through technology. So as the name suggests, digital techniques are inherent to digital art. So it doesn't mean na you can use digital techniques to create physical work. However, often the two go hand in hand. Also, in digital art, there are often isn't an original, of course. So, kay naa naman tay technology, so dili ta makaingon nga kana is kanang binuhat na gina siya sa artist, sa tao. So, of course, naa na gina siya yung mga technology integration, like computer generated. So, the artist creates a digital format for digital reproduction or print. So, a lot of our artists today uses technology in creating their artworks, like kanang sa iba't tawag ano ay, like tablet or something, kanang mag-draw na lang siya sa screen. So, digital art might utilize traditional practices but in a digital context. So, for example, a digital painter would use the same brush skills on a tablet as they would a canvas. So, however, they can access a wealth of colors, effects, layers, and tools that traditional artists can. So, in digital art, kana kita magkaan sila sa um, tablet, kay dali ra kay sila maka-access og mga colors, like makapili ra sila og colors na pwede nila i-add yon sa ilahang nga art. Unlike sa traditional nga mag-sketch padaan or mag-paint, kuan pa sila, mangita pa sila og color nga musut ana nga subject. So in traditional art, though scans and photographs of original artworks might exist online, so this is seen as secondary to the tangible end products made by traditional artists. So traditional work can utilize digital techniques. So many photographers use digital editing software but may not consider themselves as a digital artist. Okay, since kanang noon mukuan sila o integrate sila pod o kanang digital techniques but kanang dili nila i-consider ilang self as a digital artist kaya nagamit pa gyapon sila or nagkuan gyapon sila sa traditional art. So, in traditional art, an artist may create an original piece for exhibition, print, or other reproductions. The original work often carries more value and prestige. Diba? If sa traditional art, ito na ito makita ang creativity and originality sa usa ka artist since siya maginabuhat sa kana nga art. So, traditional art is bound by physical materials. As a result, it can take more time and effort to achieve some of the same results as digital artists. So, in traditional art, it will consume a lot of time, unlike sa digital art na kanang provided na ang colors, ang layers, ang effects, which kanang makapili ra dayon ang artist na pwede niyang ikuan sa digital art. Unlike sa traditional art, nga mag-consume pa gyud siya of long period of time to complete his or her artwork. So this is the implication of digital art. So it has enabled artists to unearth their creativity further. So artists can advance their work and improve their talent through new materials, mediums, and techniques. So it has expanded the possibilities through the augmented reality exhibitions and virtual reality installations, among other venues. So, digital art has helped artists, other artists, to express more of themselves in a creative manner.
Now let's talk about another category of art, and that is fashion. Fashion, as we all know, has a long and winding history that stretches back centuries. It is the art and practice of creating clothing accessories, and that involves the application of design, aesthetics, and natural beauty to garments and their embellishments. Fashion designers work in a variety of ways, including designing RTW or ready to wear collections, haute couture collections, and custom pieces for individual clients. Now let's go over to the history of fashion designs, starting with the early beginnings, and that includes the ancient civilizations and medieval and Renaissance fashion. Fashion design traces its roots back to ancient civilizations where clothing served both practical and symbolic purposes. In ancient Egypt, clothing was made from linen, with styles signifying social status and wealth. The Greek and Romans introduced draped garments, such as togas and chitons, which emphasize elegance and simplicity. During the medieval period, fashion became more complex and varied. Clothing styles were heavily influenced by social hierarchies and religious norms. In Europe, the nobility wore elaborate garments made from expensive fabrics like silk and velvet, adorned with embroidery and jewels. The Renaissance brought a renewed interest in art and culture, reflected in fashion through a more elaborate designs, vibrant colors, and the introduction of structured garments. Now let's talk about the birth of haute couture, in which Charles Frederick Worth was known for, and the rise of Paris as fashion capital. Worth is often regarded as the father of haute couture for his pioneering role in establishing fashion houses where clients could have custom-made and high-quality garments. He introduced the idea of seasonal collections and fashion shows, setting the foundation for contemporary fashion design. Paris emerged as the epicenter of fashion during Worth's time, attracting designers, artists, fashionable clientele from around the world. The city's reputation in elegance and innovation in fashion continued to grow with designers like Coco Chanel and Christian Dior, further solidifying the city's status as the global fashion capital. These designers introduced groundbreaking styles such as Chanel's little black dress and Dior's new look, which revolutionized women's fashion. Now let's go over to the 20th century fashion, including the Roaring Twenties, post-war fashion, and the swinging 60s. The 1920s, known as the Roaring Twenties, were marked by a significant shift in fashion. This era saw the rise of the flapper style, characterized by shorter hemlines, drop waists, and a more relaxed silhouette. Fashion became more accessible and expressive, reflecting the social changes and the liberation of the period. The aftermath of World War II brought about dramatic changes in fashion. The 1950s were dominated by elegance and femininity of Dior's new look, which featured cinch waists, full skirts, and luxurious fabrics. This period also saw the rise of ready-to-wear fashion, making stylish clothing more accessible to the general public. The 1960s, or the swinging 60s, were a decade of youth and rebellion, reflected in the vibrant and eclectic fashion of the time. London emerged as a new fashion hub with designers like Mary Quant popularizing the miniskirt and Twiggy becoming the face of the mod movement. The era embraced bold patterns, bright colors, and futuristic materials, breaking away from traditional fashion norms and paving the way for modern fashion's diversity and experimentation. Lastly, we have contemporary fashion, which includes fast fashion and sustainable fashion. The late 20th and the early 21st centuries saw the rise of fast fashion, characterized by the rapid production and distribution of trendy and affordable clothing. Brands like Zara, H&M, and Forever 21 capitalize on this model, enabling consumers to quickly access latest styles at low prices. However, fast fashion faced criticism for its environmental impact, labor practices, and contribution to the throwaway culture. In response to the negative impact of fast fashion, there has been a growing movement towards sustainable fashion. Designers and brands are increasingly adopting eco-friendly practices, such as using organic materials, reducing waste, and ensuring fair labor conditions. The focus on sustainability aims to create a more ethical and environmentally responsible fashion industry. Designers like Stella McCartney and companies like Patagonia have led the way in promoting sustainable fashion practices.
Good morning, sir. So today, I'll be discussing the characteristic of fashion design. First, we have creativity and artistry. Fashion thrives on creativity. Whether through bold designs or simple styling, it transforms ideas into wearable art, making everyday outfits more than just a fabric but a statement. Second characteristic we have is technical expertise. Behind every great design is craftsmanship. Proper fabric selection, stitching, and construction ensure fashion is not just stylish but also functional, comfortable, and long lasting. Next, we have trend awareness. Fashion evolves constantly. Understanding trends allows designers and consumers to adapt while maintaining originality, ensuring fashion remains fresh, relevant, and innovative. Last is social and cultural influence. What we wear reflects society. Fashion has the power to challenge norms, promote sustainability, and represent movements, proving that style is more than aesthetic, it's a statement. Now that we've done discussing the key characteristic of fashion, let's move on to its importance. First is self-expression. Of course, fashion is a form of communication. So the way we dress reflects our personality, mood, and identity without saying a word. It allows us to be creative and show who we truly are. Next is cultural and societal reflection. Fashion is a mirror of history, tradition, and social change. It preserves cultural identity, represents movements, and adapts to the evolving values of society. Next importance of fashion design is economic influence. Fashion is a global industry that generates jobs, fuels businesses, and drives economic growth. From designers to retailers, it creates opportunities and supports livelihoods. Last is artistic innovation. Fashion is an art form that pushes creative boundaries. Designers experiment with new ideas, challenge beauty standards, and turn clothing into a canvas for self expression and innovation. So, that is all my part for today.
Okay, for the next category of art, which is the applied art. So when we say applied art, it is application of art into something. So, unsam juday ni ang applied art? So, applied art is defined as artistic designs made for utilitarian objects in everyday use. So, when we say utilitarian objects, it is made for something that is for practical uses. So, that is applied art. Applied arts are a subsection of arts that include both design and decoration alongside practical objects in order to make them aesthetically pleasing. That means that these objects are designed so that the results are useful and aesthetically enjoyable at the same time. So, to make it simple, applied arts is there are two main points there of applied arts. First is the purpose, and second is to make something that is aesthetically pleasing. So we can associate the applied arts into the idea that beautiful with a purpose. So that is applied art. If something is a purpose and it also serves an designs or aesthetics for us to see. Because of this fusion between creativity and function, applied art embraces an enormous range of products and items ranging from doorknobs, tables, airports, railway station, concert hall walls and roof, a fountain pen, a walking stick, a siren, an alarm clock, or a computer mouse. So, art has a wider scope, and those that I've mentioned is those are the examples of an applied art. For example, the table. So table has a variety of designs, the shapes, the color, and that makes it aesthetically pleasing. So we can also determine that a table has a purpose, and of course it has a purpose and as an aesthetic. So that what make it is an example of an applied art. So for the examples of the applied arts, first we have the industrial design. So as you can see in the picture, there's cell phone and KitchenAid mixer. So these things are serves aesthetics and also a purpose. For example, the cell phone. So there are different features, models, and designs of cell phones. And of course, it has different purposes, such as for messaging or calls. And same goes to the KitchenAid mixer. So it has different sizes, shapes, and also it has it has its own purpose. Also, for the architecture, we can consider the houses, school buildings as an example of an applied art, because it has different designs, different structures, and also it has a purpose. For example, this the house. So the house, it serves the purpose where we live, and for also the school buildings, this is where we learn, and it has different styles and structures, so that we can consider it as an applied art. And also for the crafts, for example, as you can see in the picture, the bag that is made from recycled jeans. So it serves an aesthetic, so there's an aesthetic in there, and also a purpose. So, diba kibam jud ta nga ang bag, pwede siya masudlan. So, it has many purpose jud. And next is the pen organizer or pen holders. I'm sure nga we are familiar with um, this kind of craft, but it's made from fold or rolled papers. So, it is used for kaning pen holder, um, pen organizer. So, it has it is a applied art because it serves aesthetics, and also it has a purpose. Next, for the ceramic art, we have here the cups and plates that made from ceramics. So of course we use these things for an everyday, so it is in practical uses. So that is also an applied art. For the automotive design, we also have the bus, the tractor, and the sports car. So, of course, the bus serves as a mode of transportation. So, it is very useful. So, that's its purpose. And also, we can consider that as an applied art because it's the purpose and also the aesthetic we have there is the size and also the color, the design. So, that's its purpose. And for the tractor, so of course it's used in the farm to make the farming easier and faster. So it was designed to make the farmers work faster and to produce more crops. And we also have the sports car, of course, aside from its aesthetic designs that we are being amazed of. So it's also used for a transportation. Okay, for the fashion design, we have the gown and the casual outfits. And as you can see, the design and the color of the gown is pleasing in the eye. Of course, it also serves as a purpose. We can wear it for the formal occasions. And same goes to the casual outfits. So that serves as an aesthetics for our everyday life. So that we can consider it as an applied art. And same goes to the calligraphy. Next, the calligraphy. So we have here the example, the wedding invitation. So in the wedding invitation, so of course it is more pleasing in the eye if it has designs, and of course the letters is well written. And another example for it is the letter. So it is good to, or it is pleasing to read a letter if it is well written. And you know, the purpose for that is to make your reader interested on what you're writing. Next is for the interior design. So the purpose of interior design is to create functional, aesthetically pleasing, and comfortable spaces that enhance the quality of life for the people who use them. So we can consider it as an applied art because interior designs will make it pleasing to see. The house, it will look it will make the house look good. And um, it can also create as a safe space for us. So that will be the examples for the applied arts. So there are two types of applied arts. First is the standard machine made products with a particular design applied to them to make them more attractive and easier to use. Second is the individually crafted, aesthetically pleasing but primarily functional craft products made by artisans or skilled workers that serves a defined purpose. So from the examples we have that I have mentioned earlier, so we can consider the industrial design, for example, a cell phone. We can consider it as a standard machine-made product because the primary tool that has been used for making a cell phone is of course the machine, and the automotive designs, for example the tractor, so they uses machines in making a tractor or making those cars, the buses. And for the individually crafted products, so from the example earlier is the bag that is made of recycled jeans, so we can consider it as a individually crafted because um, the individual, so there's an individual who crafted product, and it doesn't necessarily use a machine to create that product. So those are the two types of the applied art.
Good morning everyone, I'm Mariolyn Corduna and I'm going to discuss about pottery. So pottery is made by shaping soft clay into different objects like bowls, plates, and pitchers. So the clay can be molded by hand on a spinning wheel or using a special molds. So after shaping the pottery, it's left to dry before being heated in a very hot oven called a kiln. This heating process, known as firing, where the clay hardens and make it strong and durable. So pottery has been used for thousands of years to create both useful and decorative items. So there are three main types of clay. The first one is the earthenware clay. It is low temperature clay, porous and reddish in color. The second one is the stoneware clay, fired at a higher temperature and more durable. The last one is the porcelain clay, high temperature clay that becomes smooth and glass-like when fired. So example, in the Philippines, the palayok, which belongs to earthenware pots, are common used for cooking and storing food. So kaning palayok, so this one is the palayok. So it is commonly used here in the Philippines kay as what they've said sa mga kanang karaan nga nag-una pa sa to ang generation kay kanang mas lami daw ang mga sudan if naa sa palayok ibutang. This one is the palayok and we are commonly using this one as of now. Pottery making process. Pottery has been an essential household item for around 20,000 years. Even with modern advancement, the way pottery is made has stayed largely the same. So for example, the famous Bornay jars from Ilocos Sur are made using traditional pottery techniques. So kani siya, even though kanang we are now in the 21st century, kay famous Japan siya and they are using kanang katugya po nga traditional nga pagbuhat ani nga pottery. So there are types of making a clay. The first one is the coiling. This technique involves rolling out long clay ropes and stacking them to shape a pot. So for example, the famous here in the Philippines that uses the kanang coiling techniques is the manunggal jar, this one. So this is from Palawan. So the second one is pinching. Pinching is a simple technique where the potter shapes the clay using their fingers. So for example, kay kanang indigenous Filipino communities kay muna ilang kanang like negosyo nila nga kanang magbuhat sila og mga cups using pinching. This one is an example. So ang kaning pinching kay kanang mag forma kag cups dayon ang imo pag-design kay using with your kaning hands. Ya imo siyang kanang murag piece on nimo siya kay kato siya, it creates a design na. So that kanang technique is called pinching. So the third one is the throwing. So throwing is the process of shaping pottery using a potter's wheel. As the wheel spins, the potter carefully molds the clay into the desired shape. This technique allows for quicker creation of pots compared to hand building methods. So ani siya kay kanang since the wheel is kanang moving man, even in a small mistake can cause the pot to collapse or kanang dili siya mamao ang shape. Because of that, mastering the technique takes time, patience, and skill. So kani man jud kay need jud nimo practice kay murag usa nimo kasayop kanang bungkag na rin siya or dili na jud siya maporma nga pot. So ang example ani nga gigamitan og throwing is the katong akong ingon ganina nga kanang Bornard jars and vegan Ilocos. So this one. So throwing needs practice jud kay para practice and mastery kay para mas kanang maporma jud siya as og pot. So the next one is drying. Before firing, pottery must dry in stages. The first one is that greenware, soft and still moldable. The second one is leather hard, stiff but can still be carved or shaped. The third one is bone dry, almost no moisture, ready for firing. So for example, is the traditional palayok pots are left to dry under the sun before firing. So kadang we all know kanang palayok. So palayok is still used in today's era kay ngano. As what I've seen sa akong mga kanang lola kay if magluto sila puto kay they still use palayok. And kanang lami jud siya if kanang gikan siya sa pots nga kanang gikan siya sa kanang pottery, unlike bitawan ng kanang new na karon nga mga kaldero kay lahi ra jud ang lasa. So pottery is still the best. So the last one is the bisque firing. So firing the pot in a kiln at a high temperature to make it hard and durable. So for example, the Panday Pukyutan pottery of Bohol is known for a strong bisque fired pieces. So kani ang bisque firing kay this is the last steps in making the process of pottery. So kani siya kay kanang buwa jud mo siya sa init to make it strong and durable. So as a conclusion, pottery is an ancient yet enduring craft that remains an essential part of many cultures, including the Philippines. From traditional techniques like coiling and pinching to modern wheel throwing methods, the process of shaping clay into functional and artistic process has remained largely unchanged over thousands of years. The different types of clay and the careful drying and firing processes determine the final product's strength and quality. So in the Philippines, pottery holds cultural and historical significance seen in artifacts like the manunggal jar and everyday items like the palayok and bornay jars. These traditional pottery making techniques continue to thrive, preserving the craftsmanship and heritage of Filipino. Despite technological advancements, pottery remains both a practical necessity and a form of artistic expression, bridging the past with the present, whether for household use or cultural preservation. Pottery will continue to be a valuable and respected craft. So that's all for my part. Thank you.
To summarize all that we have discussed today, art is constantly evolving, taking on new forms that shape how we see and experience creativity. Conceptual art focuses on ideas over appearance, while digital art merges technology with expression, making art more accessible than ever. Then fashion design turns clothing into a statement of identity and culture, while applied art brings beauty and function to everyday life. Pottery, though rooted in tradition, continues to innovate with new techniques. Together with these art forms, it shows that creativity has no limit. It adapts, inspires, and remains a powerful force in shaping the world around us. To end our report, let's ponder this quote by Pablo Picasso. Every child is an artist. The challenge is to remain an artist as we grow up.
For the assessment, we will have a multiple choice and essay. We will present a 15 multiple choice questionnaire for the test 1 and an essay in test 2, covering the topics we've discussed.